Hello again. I'm Alvan Chino, and I'll now present a technical breakdown of the data-driven application that I created called the World of Pokemon that utilizes the Poke API. So first off, I imported the necessary libraries needed for the code to carry out various functions like import random, import request, import bytes, and I then created the application window and defined the raised frame function that allows me to navigate between the frames. Now, firstly, we have the landing frame section. The section outlines the set size, label, and background image for the landing page. This format is also followed by all the other pages. I also placed the begin button in the landing page for users to enter in the app. Now, next, we have the home frame section. Here is where I first positioned the navigation bar that leads to the four main frames. This is constant throughout the app, as users can navigate to a page of their choosing no matter where they are, since they are present in every page. Also in the home frame, I designed and placed a button that leads to the instruction frame. And now heading over to the instruction frame, I set its size and photo, but I also placed an exit button here that leads back to the home frame. Just like the navigation bar, this is consistent with the app, except for the home page. It is equipped with the same style, placement, and functionality. Here is the Pokédex frame. This is where I began to incorporate data retrieval from the API. I first defined fetching the Pokemon list to feature it in the list box by pasting the URL and using its JSON file. I also defined fetching the Pokemon data for when one of them is selected. I then defined an update function in the scroll box to rotate the list when another one is selected. I then added the function to filter out the data whenever a user uses the search bar. Finally, I defined the function to display the data and retrieve the image of the selected Pokemon by using specific URLs like sprites and official artwork for the images and keywords like name, height, and weight for the data. I then called the entire function before making the actual frame right here. I also added a search bar that allows the user to filter out the data, along with defining a hint text that guides those unfamiliar with its intended use. I then added a list box for displaying the list and a scroll bar for heading up and down, and then bound them together to avoid any awkward positionings using the bind function. Finally, I added the image display area. Next is the abilities frame. I added the ability IDs from the API so that the code could fetch a random one when called. This display function here uses the keywords to fetch specific information like name and generation. Lastly, I added error messages as the most recent abilities and descriptions aren't fully integrated into the Poke API as of right now. An update function is also added that brings in a random abilities data when called, as well as error messages for those whose information hasn't been added in yet. Below is a setup for the abilities page that includes the random generator button and the display labels for the information of the ability. Up next is the type stream. I retrieved its data from the API by pasting the URL in a JSON file. I then began to work on the buttons, starting with the one that allows the user to view the types list, which, as coded here, show all 18 types. This is done by manually adding a list of the types. Next are the filter buttons, which I utilized if-else statements to carry out their functions. I added the condition that a type from the list has to be entered into the search bar for the filters to work, else it will display the error message. The strengths and weaknesses filters are relatively the same, using the keywords to fetch the respective information as instructed by the API. The moves button is different, as I defined the function to not only display moves, but also display new ones whenever it is recalled. The View All button combines all three data into one, as shown here. The rest is a types frame setup, including the result box, search bar, and filter button layouts. Lastly, we have the habitat frame. The definition here is similar to the abilities frame, where I pasted the URL to fetch its data. I then defined the display function to show it habitat, name, generation, and three species living in that habitat. As an extra touch, I used if else statements to retrieve the image of the first example given. As seen here, using the URL, I used a different artwork other than the one used in the Pokédex frame by using the different keywords. Finally, I defined the update label, which retrieves another random habitat when called, as well as error messages just in case. The rest is the habitat frame layout, including the render generator button and the containers for the information and the image. Coming to the end, I called in the frame function to raise the landing page when launched, and then closed the main loop, thereby completing my application. Many thanks for watching.